This is Joe. Honestly, Joe's a hero. He did everything we were told to do. He got the degree, he landed the good corporate job, and he even uses one of those color-coded budgeting apps that pings him every time he spends $5 on a burrito. But here's the thing. Joe feels like he's losing, and he's frustrated because he thinks it's his fault. He's lying awake at 2 a.m. thinking that if he just skipped one more latte or worked one more overtime shift or finally mastered the art of the side hustle, he'd finally get ahead. But I want to let Joe and you in on a little secret. It's not a you problem. You're just playing a game where the rules were written in a language they don't teach in school. See that glowing red spot on Joe's brain? That's what researchers call a psychological tax. Think about that for a second. A massive study by the National Bureau of Economic Research found that when you're stressed about debt and money, your brain actually loses cognitive capacity. You aren't just tired, you're literally functioning with a lower processing power. Your IQ actually drops when you're worried about bills. So why aren't we talking about this? Because the system doesn't want you to think clearly. It wants you on the treadmill. Today, we're looking at the source code of money. We're breaking down the hidden systems that are designed, literally designed, to keep you running in place. Let's start with the big one, banks. We're taught that a bank is like a giant high-tech piggy bank. You put your money in, they lock it up in a cold room with a big round door, and it sits there. Yeah, not exactly. Here's the thing. The second you deposit $1,000, that money is gone. Through something called fractional reserve banking, banks are allowed to keep just a tiny fraction of your cash and lend out the rest. But it's crazier than that. They aren't just lending your cash, they are creating new money based on your deposit. The system thrives on you being a borrower. Think about that. Why is it so incredibly easy to get a credit card or a car loan, but so incredibly hard to get a raise that beats inflation? It's because debt is the rent you pay for living your life. When you sign for that 72-month car loan, you aren't just buying wheels, you are pre-selling your future labor. You are trading your Monday mornings in the year 2030 for a new car smell that's going to fade in 3 weeks. You're essentially a time traveler, stealing freedom from your future self to pay for a lifestyle the system told you that you deserved. Now let's talk about the ghost in the room, inflation. We're told inflation is prices going up, like it's some natural weather event, like rain or a heat wave. It's not. It's actually the value of your time going down. An IMF study analyzed decades of data and found that during periods of inflation, real wages, the actual stuff you can buy with your work, often drop by over 20%. Look at this chart. Think about this. Since the early 70s, productivity has gone through the roof. We are more efficient than ever, but wages, they've stayed flat. This is the great decoupling. We are producing more, but we are keeping less. The system is rigged to reward people who own assets, land, businesses, stocks, and punish people who just work for paper. If you're just saving cash in a high-yield account that pays 4%, while the cost of bread and rent goes up 10%, you aren't saving, you're losing. Slowly, quietly, by design. Okay, so the banks want your debt and the government wants your purchasing power. But there's a third player, the algorithms. We live in a dopamine economy. Here's the thing. Companies today spend more on attention engineering than they do on the actual quality of their products. They don't want to sell you a good pair of shoes. They want to trigger a neurological response that makes you need them at 11 p.m. on a Tuesday. Most people think dopamine is about pleasure, but the science shows it's actually about motivation and effort. Researchers like John Salamone have shown that dopamine is the chemical that decides if a task is worth the effort. Tech companies know this. They've lowered the effort to zero. That one-click buy button, that infinite scroll, those are the attention traps. They use variable rewards, the same trick used in Vegas slot machines, to bypass your logical brain. Think about that. You're not bad with money, you're just a human being with a 200,000-year-old brain trying to fight a billion-dollar supercomputer designed to make you spend. It's like bringing a knife to a drone strike. So what do? Do we just give up? Of course not. You win by changing the game you're playing. This isn't just a theory. From the IMF documenting the wage gap to the National Bureau of Economic Research proving the debt brain drain, the data is clear. The game is designed for you to lose. So step 1, regain your focus. First, stop being a pure consumer and start being an owner. I don't care if it's $10 a week. Move from paper to assets. Buy the companies you shop at. Buy the land they build on. Second, recognize the psychological traps. If it's a limited time offer, it's a dopamine trigger. If an app makes it too easy to spend, it's because they're hacking your effort loop. Walk away. And third, realize that the most valuable thing you own isn't your bank balance, it's your time. Every dollar of debt you take on is a piece of your future life you no longer own. Look, the system wants you tired, in debt, and distracted because tired, distracted people don't ask questions. They don't rebel. They just keep running. But you're asking questions now, and that's the first step to stepping off the treadmill. If you're ready to stop running and start building, hit subscribe. We're drawing the new map, one system at a time. See you in the next one.